When engineer Jean-Jacques Valasco headed up UFO investigations for the French government, he believed that the topic held no supporting evidence and was not the extraterrestrial phenomenon some witnesses believed. But after a UFO left behind physical traces on the property of Renato Nicolai, his beliefs would forever be changed. As you will see as this Paranormal TV classic concludes. Professor Bugnaz and his assistant flew to Trans-en-Provence to obtain soil and plant samples.
It is probably the first time that after a very well characterized event concerning a UFO, there was a full scientific study showing that some changes were brought to the plants near the place where the UFO landed, and that these biochemical changes were decreasing with increasing distances from the trace, so that all the findings, the biochemical findings, could be put into equations and be mathematically characterized in a very accurate way. Then these findings were compared with the same result obtained several years later, so that these controls led us to realize that on the same area, 2 years after the event, all the findings, all the things were recovering a normal shape, a normal pattern of biochemical characteristics.
Following procedure, a psychologist was sent to interview Renato Nicolai to determine if he was a reliable witness. Nicolai, as always, was extremely honest and very down to earth.
So, you found no variations from his testimony?
No, none. He just saw what he saw. He doesn't appear to be the kind of man who would make something like this up.
You have no doubt?
Oh, in my professional opinion, none whatsoever. He seems quite unaffected by any of it. I was just a bit annoyed at all the attention.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Valasco continued to coordinate the research. A lab in Toulouse was used, as well as the one at the Institute for the National Research of Agriculture. In all, it was an exhaustive scientific undertaking, both in the lab and in the field. Valasco realized from the evidence obtained from Bugnaz that this case was extraordinary and could not be dismissed as a hoax. He continued to examine all possibilities. Bugnaz had checked with the military and had been assured that no military prototypes had been in the area.
Is there any chance of a hoax? Could someone duplicate the effect by other means?
No one knew what soil samples I would take, what tests I would run. There were no samples of herbicide in the soil, no traces of anything man-made. If someone wanted to create this, they would need more years of study than you and I have together. And they'd also have to have a greater knowledge of toxic compounds than exist anywhere.
You're still not sure, are you? I'm a scientist.
The lab results were astounding. Based on the way the ground was impacted, whatever had landed that day in Renato's garden weighed 3.5 to 5 tons and heated the soil to a temperature between 1100 and 1500 degrees Fahrenheit.
In time and in distance, all the biochemical findings are consistent with the description given by the witness. And it is probably the first time in the world, to my knowledge, that such a complete set of data has been obtained on such cases of UFO landing.
When
I realized that a strange thing had happened, I went back to the place to look again and again. I was trying to understand if it had been a hallucination or if it was real. I had not hallucinated because the ground was burnt. There was an imprint, and the imprint was examined by the police. The next day, they came and made a report. Then some scientists came to obtain soil samples, and in effect, they admitted that something had happened in that spot. In effect, we were in the presence of an unidentified phenomenon, which had been witnessed and that had left traces in the soil and surrounding environment. In conclusion, after the case in Transon-Provence, one cannot have the same perception about the UFO phenomenon. For one can no longer debate whether or not it exists. One cannot say, do you believe in UFOs or don't you believe in UFOs? For now we are aware of phenomena which we cannot control.